On my roommate Daisy's birthday, she did something unbelievable. She didn't just bring a creepy older man back to the tiny studio we shared. She actually tried to force me to watch a sex tape of the two of them. And to make matters worse, that disgusting old man didn't just want Daisy. He had his creepy eyes on me, too. When I rejected his advances, Daisy went on TikTok and started spreading rumors that I was trying to steal her man. Honestly, it's hilarious. What exactly am I supposed to be jealous of? His short height? His empty bank account? Or his musty old man smell? With graduation behind us, we both decided to take a gap semester to prep for our upcoming SAT retakes. To save money, Daisy and I rented a tiny studio apartment near our prep center. It didn't take long for me to notice Daisy acting strange. Almost every other day, she was downstairs by the apartment gate, cuddling and acting all touchy-feely with this creepy, older guy. When I finally asked her about him, her face flushed bright red, and she sheepishly admitted they were dating. Before I could even offer a polite, "Oh, nice," Daisy cut in eagerly. "Chloe, today is my birthday. Can I bring Gary up to our room tonight? Just for a little bit. He'll just sit with me for a few minutes. We'll just talk, I swear. I just want him to spend my birthday with me." Our rented studio was microscopic. There was literally only one bed and a single desk chair. If Gary came in, I would literally die of awkwardness. I'd be forced to sit right there on the same bed while they flirted. Without a second thought, I shook my head. "No. Absolutely not." Daisy's face immediately fell, and she snapped. "Chloe, don't be so selfish. I pay half the rent here. Why can't my boyfriend come in? Are you just jealous because I actually have a boyfriend and you don't?" Realizing there was no arguing with her logic, I just shrugged and went cold. I said no. I don't want a strange man in our room. What are you going to do about it? Kill me? Seeing that I wouldn't budge, Daisy stomped out, slamming the door behind her. That evening, I was sitting in the evening prep class at our SAT center. To my horror, Daisy actually dragged Gary into the classroom to sit with her. They sat just diagonally in front of me. If I didn't know any better, I would have sworn Gary was her dad coming to check on her grades. Every time I looked up at the whiteboard, my eyes would catch the two of them shamelessly making out. It got worse as the class went on. They were making so much noise. Everyone in the room was visibly uncomfortable, but because of basic social boundaries, no one said anything. Seeing that no one was stopping them, Gary got even bolder, sliding his hands all over her. The 45-minute lecture felt longer than my entire life. When we got back to the apartment that night, Daisy proudly showed off a set of sexy lingerie Gary had bought her. Honestly, it was so skimpy, it barely qualified as clothing. My gut told me this Gary guy was bad news. Trying to be a good friend, I delicately tried to warn her. "Daisy, think about it. Why do you think guys his age don't date women their own age? It's because women his age are too smart to fall for his BS. They only target younger, naive girls because they're easy to manipulate. Older guys who are still single and acting like this are usually walking red flags." Daisy rolled her eyes, so hard I thought they'd get stuck. "You're just sour because you can't get a guy. I like older men. He's mature, stable, and has life experience. Boys our age can't even compare." Well, I tried. If she wanted to ignore good advice, that was her problem. That night, I had a horrible nightmare. I dreamed Gary snuck into our room. He pinned Daisy against the wall, groaning. In my dream, Daisy giggled. "Stop it, Chloe is right there." Gary gave a wicked smirk. "Who cares? She's fast asleep." The next morning, I gasped and sat bolt upright in bed, heart pounding. My eyes widened in pure horror. There, lying on the floor right next to my bed, were Daisy and Gary. I stared, praying it was just a hallucination. I pinched my thigh hard. It hurt. It wasn't a dream. Daisy had actually let Gary sneak into our room while I was asleep. They had actually right next to me while I was sleeping. At that moment, I wanted to crawl into a hole and die. I pretended to still be asleep until Gary finally left. The moment the door clicked shut, Daisy shook me awake, practically bursting with excitement to show me a video she had recorded of them last night on her Snapchat. I glanced at the screen for 2 seconds and felt like I needed to wash my eyes with bleach. I immediately started packing my bags, trying my absolute best not to scream at her. "Daisy, pay me your half of the deposit. I'm moving out. You and that old creep can have this place." "No. You can't leave." Daisy grabbed my arm tightly. "Who's going to keep me on track with studying if you leave? I still want to get into a good college. Chloe, we're best friends. How can you be so selfish? You're only thinking about yourself, not me." I let out a cold laugh. "Do you honestly care about college?" Daisy begged and pleaded, swearing up and down that she would never, ever let Gary inside our room again. She even wrote out a signed promise on a piece of paper. Since our landlord wouldn't refund my deposit anyway, and I couldn't find another cheap place close to the prep center, I decided to tolerate her one last time. I needed to focus on my exams. For the next few weeks, Daisy kept her word. Gary didn't come back inside. However, to stay close to her, Gary rented a tiny room right across the hall from us. The walls in this building were paper thin. Almost every night, I could hear disgusting, muffled noises coming from across the hall. A week later, Daisy got a frantic call from her parents. Her grandfather back in rural Oregon was terminally ill, and she needed to catch the next flight home to say goodbye. Crying hysterically, she packed her bags and left for the airport. With Daisy gone, my life became incredibly peaceful. Except for the fact that Gary was still living across the hall. We kept bumping into each other in the corridor. On Saturday, we didn't have prep classes. I slept in from afternoon until evening, and around 8 p.m., I decided to head downstairs to grab some takeout. The moment I stepped out of my door, I ran right into Gary. Unlike his usual creepy silence, Gary actually smiled and initiated a conversation. "Hey, Chloe, right? Daisy mentioned your name. Where are you going so late? It's pretty dangerous for a pretty girl to be out alone at night. How about I walk with you and keep you safe? I don't mean anything by it. You're Daisy's best friend, so naturally, I care about your safety." Though Gary tried to look like a harmless, nice guy, every time I looked at his face, I pictured him and Daisy from that horrific night. It made my stomach churn. I shook my head, keeping my voice polite but cold. "No, thank you. I'm meeting a friend." Gary's eyes narrowed slightly. He kept that greasy smile on his face. "All right then, go have fun with your friend. But hey, you'll probably want something to drink while you're out. I just bought 2 cold coffees from the convenience store. Here, take one. Don't be shy. You help Daisy study all the time. Think of it as me thanking you on her behalf." Before I could protest, Gary shoved a canned coffee into my hands and walked away. Not wanting to cause a scene, I held on to it. Once I got downstairs, I grabbed a bowl of noodles and headed straight back to my room. Remembering how creepy he was, there was no way in hell I was drinking anything he gave me. I tossed the can onto my desk. As I ate my noodles, I opened TikTok and started scrolling. The algorithm popped up a people you may know profile. The username was @Romeo_dream. Curiosity got the better of me. I tapped on the profile. He had just posted a new video an hour ago. The caption read, "What should I do when I'm in love with 2 girls at the same time? I'm losing sleep over this." In the comment section, a user had commented, "Nothing to lose sleep over. Just pick the one who fits your needs better." The creator, @Romeo_dream, replied, "One is my girlfriend, sweet and pure like a white lily. The other is her roommate, hot, wild, and gorgeous like a red rose. Every time I see her, my heart races. Honestly, compared to my girlfriend, I feel like the roommate and I are a match made in heaven. She's about 5 feet 7 inches, and I'm 5 feet 5 inches. I'm 7 years older than her, a hardworking construction guy making $3,500 a month. That's more than enough to provide for her. How do I win over this red rose? Any tips?" I almost choked on my noodles. Making $3,500 a month, and he's already trying to cheat? The audacity. Thankfully, the internet comments were brutal. "Are you seriously choosing? What do these girls see in you? Your height? Your empty wallet? Or your musty old man smell? Desire is human nature, but self-control is class. You have a girlfriend and you're drooling over her roommate? You're like a stray dog in heat. Cheap and pathetic. Any college guy she finds will be 10 times better than you. Stop dreaming, you ugly troll." Reading these comments made me feel incredibly satisfied. But then, a user named @alpha_mindset left a comment. "If you want to get her, you need to create accidents. Find a way to get her pregnant. Once she's carrying your kid, her parents will beg you to marry her. You won't even have to buy an engagement ring or pay for a wedding." I couldn't believe how sick and twisted some people could be. A mob of angry users started replying and bashing @alpha_mindset, but he didn't care. He just kept egging the creator on to take action. I didn't even need to click his profile to know exactly what kind of bitter, lonely incel he was. But my satisfaction turned to absolute horror when I saw the creator's reply. @alpha_mindset, I like how you think. Actually, I cornered her outside her door tonight. She looked so flustered and excited when she saw me, though she tried to play hard to get. I grabbed the chance to give her a coffee spiked with a little special ingredient. Once she drinks it, she'll be carrying my baby in no time. My heart stopped. I checked the creator's location. It was in my exact neighborhood. Connecting all the dots, as much as I didn't want to believe it, @Romeo_dream was definitely Gary. My hands started shaking. What special ingredient did he put in there? I stared at the coffee can on my desk. Upon closer inspection, the tab had been slightly tampered with. Realizing what it was, I grabbed the can and threw it across the room. It slammed into the far wall. I ran to the bathroom and scrubbed my hands with soap and sanitizer about 10 times, my skin turning bright red. This was disgusting. My first instinct was to add his Snapchat and scream at him, but then I stopped. A delusional, narcissistic creep like Gary, if I provoked him, there was no telling what extreme things he might do. With Daisy gone, I was completely alone in this apartment. It was dangerous. I lost my appetite completely. I kept refreshing the comments, my chest tight with anxiety. The internet was still ripping Gary to shreds. You have nothing, yet you don't appreciate what you have. Let your girlfriend go. She deserves better. This is disgusting. The roommate hit the absolute worst luck running into you. Did you skip biology class? You think drinking something gets a girl pregnant? Do you think her stomach connects to her uterus? LMAO, his IQ perfectly matches his creepy face. But then, a new comment from @alpha_mindset made my blood run cold. Hey idiot, whatever you put in her drink won't get her pregnant. It'll just digest in her stomach. If you want to lock her down, just break into her room tonight while it's dark. Take her virginity. Girls never forget their first. Once the deed is done, she's yours. She won't have a choice. How could anyone be this evil? This @alpha_mindset guy didn't even know me, yet he was actively plotting to ruin my life. A second later, Gary liked the comment and replied with 3 rose emojis. Panic seized me. A lunatic like Gary might actually try it. I had rented this place because it was right next to the public library, which made studying convenient. But now, staying here was a literal threat to my life. I grabbed my phone and charger, deciding to head back to my dorm on campus tonight. I'd have a friend come back with me tomorrow to pack my things. I walked to the door and slowly turned the deadbolt. Bang! 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 The door suddenly shook violently. From the other side, Gary's muffled, greasy voice echoed through the wood. Chloe, are you in there? I see the light under your door. Open up, I need to talk to you about something. The wood of the door was cheap, thin, and hollow. Every time Gary's fist struck it, the entire frame shuddered, sending vibrations straight through the floorboards and into the soles of my bare feet. Bang! 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 Chloe, come on, open up. I know you're in there. I can see the light under the crack. His voice had that sickening, greasy slide to it, an oily attempt at warmth that made my skin crawl. Don't be like that. I just want to talk about Daisy. She called me from the airport, crying. I think we need to coordinate how we're going to support her. My breath hitched in my throat. I stood frozen in the middle of the tiny studio, my eyes darting between the shaking door and the half-eaten bowl of noodles on my desk. Right next to the bowl lay the metal can of coffee. The silver tab was slightly bent, a tiny, jagged gap revealing the dark liquid inside. A special ingredient. My stomach did a violent flip. If I hadn't opened TikTok, if I hadn't found his profile, if I had just been a little more tired, a little more trusting, I would have drank that. I would be unconscious right now. And Gary had a key to the building. The only thing keeping him out of this room was a flimsy brass deadbolt that looked like it could be sheared off with a heavy kick. Chloe, the voice on the other side of the door, dropped a fraction of an octave. The oily warmth was evaporating, replaced by a cold, impatient edge. Don't play games. I know you're not asleep. Open the door. The doorknob jiggled. Then, it began to twist violently back and forth. Clack, 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 clack. Panic, cold and sharp, flooded my veins. I forced my legs to move. I couldn't let him hear me, but I had to secure the door. I crept forward on my tiptoes, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Our single desk chair was a heavy, old-fashioned wooden piece we had dragged in from a yard sale. I gripped the backrest, lifting it off the floor to avoid making a sound, and wedged the top of the chair firmly under the brass doorknob. It wasn't a perfect barricade, but it would buy me time. Are you ignoring me? Gary's voice was right against the wood now. He was leaning his weight against it. I could hear the creak of the hinges. That's not very polite, Chloe. After I was nice enough to bring you a drink? Is that how your parents raised you? I backed away slowly, my eyes locked on the door. I grabbed my phone off the desk. My fingers were shaking so badly, I almost dropped it. I slid the screen open and tapped on the emergency call icon. Should I call the police? Yes, of course. But what would I tell them? My roommate's boyfriend is knocking on my door, and I think he spiked my coffee because of a TikTok comment. In This neighborhood, the local police department was notoriously slow. It could take them 30 minutes to dispatch a cruiser for a disruptive neighbor call. By then, the door could be down. Bang! This time it wasn't a fist. It was a heavy, solid thud, the weight of his shoulder hitting the wood. The chair scraped against the linoleum floor, moving back a fraction of an inch. "Chloe, open this damn door," Gary hissed. The mask was completely gone now. "I know what you're doing. You think you're better than me? You think you're too good to talk to me? You're just a stuck-up little brat. Open the door before I lose my temper." I looked around the room frantically. The window. Our studio was on the second floor, facing a narrow, trash-strewn alleyway. Behind the prep center. Outside the window was a rusted, iron fire escape. It was old, probably half-rotted by the elements, but it was my only way out. I scrambled to the window, quiet as a shadow. I unlocked the latch and pushed. It didn't budge. The frame was warped, swollen shut by the humid summer air and years of cheap landlord paint jobs. I grabbed the handles and pulled upward with everything I had, my teeth grinding together. Creak. The wood groaned, but it only opened about 3 inches. A gust of hot city air rushed in, carrying the scent of rotting garbage and exhaust fumes. Behind me, the door took another massive hit. The wooden frame around the deadbolt splintered. A tiny, hairline crack appeared in the wood near the lock. "I'm coming in, Chloe," Gary whispered. I could hear his heavy, ragged breathing through the crack. "You brought this on yourself. You shouldn't have ignored me." Crack. The deadbolt was giving way. The chair was sliding. Desperation took over. I grabbed the heavy wooden desk chair by its legs, pulling it away from the door, and slammed it sideways against the bottom of the window frame. Smash. The glass shattered, raining sharp shards down onto the metal grating of the fire escape outside. The noise was deafening in the tiny room. "What the hell are you doing in there?" Gary screamed, his voice rising in panic. He threw his entire weight against the door. The wood splintered violently, the deadbolt hanging by a single screw. I didn't look back. I threw my purse over my shoulder, grabbed my phone, and scrambled through the broken window frame. Jagged glass sliced through the sleeve of my t-shirt, biting into my forearm, but I barely felt the pain. The adrenaline was a roaring fire in my ears. I tumbled out onto the cold, rusted iron of the fire escape. Inside the room, the door finally burst open with a loud crash. The wooden chair I had used to smash the window was kicked aside. Gary's face appeared at the broken window. In the dim light of the alleyway, his eyes looked hollow, wide, and wild. His thin, greasy hair was plastered to his forehead. He looked less like a human and more like a rabid animal. "Chloe," he roared, reaching his long, dirt-caked fingers through the broken glass to grab at my ankles. I scrambled backward on the metal grating, kicking out with my sneakers. My heel caught his knuckles, and he let out a sharp yelp, drawing his hand back. "You crazy bitch," he yelled, nursing his hand. "Where do you think you're going? You think anyone is going to believe you?" I didn't answer. I stood up, ignoring the sharp pain in my sliced arm, and flew down the rusted metal stairs of the fire escape. My sneakers clattered against the iron, the sound echoing through the dark alley. Behind me, I heard Gary scrambling through the window frame, his heavy boots clanging against the metal as he began his descent. "You can't run, Chloe. We live in the same building. Where are you gonna go?" I hit the bottom landing. The drop to the concrete alley was about 8 feet. The drop ladder was rusted shut, suspended in midair. I looked down. There was a pile of discarded cardboard boxes next to a green dumpster. I didn't think. I jumped. My feet hit the cardboard, collapsing the boxes with a loud crunch. The impact sent a jolt of pain at my shins and into my lower back, but I rolled off the pile and scrambled to my feet. I ran. I ran out of the alleyway and onto the main street, where the bright yellow neon signs of the late-night diners and the streetlights offered a fragile shield of safety. I didn't stop running until I reached the bright, fluorescent-lit lobby of the campus library, 3 blocks away. The library lobby was quiet, smelling of old paper, floor wax, and stress. A few tired college students were hunched over laptops near the entrance. I collapsed onto a vinyl couch in the corner, gasping for air. My chest felt like it was on fire. I looked down at my arm. A thin line of dark red blood was trickling down my forearm, staining my sleeve. My phone was still clutched in my hand. I dialed my friend Sarah. Sarah was a sophomore at the university living in a suite-style dorm just a 5-minute walk from the library. We had known each other since middle school. She was tough, practical, and didn't take anyone's nonsense. She picked up on the third ring, her voice groggy. "Chloe? It's like 11 p.m. What's up?" "Sarah." I choked out, my voice cracking. "I need help. I'm at the university library. Gary, he tried to break into my room." The sleepiness vanished from Sarah's voice instantly.
"What?
"Is he there now? Are you hurt?" "I'm bleeding a little. I had to break the window to get out."
He's
"Crazy, Sarah."
He tried to spike my drink.
I read his TikTok. He wanted to.
I
Couldn't bring myself to say the words out loud. The sheer horror of what at alpha_mindset had suggested made my throat close up. "Stay right there. Do not move." "I'm coming with Mark," Sarah said, her voice dropping into a hard, protective tone. Mark was her older brother, a 6'2" senior who played club rugby. "We'll be there in 5 minutes." While I waited, I pulled up TikTok again. My hands were still shaking. I went back to @Romeo_Dreams profile. He had posted a new video just 10 minutes ago. It was a shaky, dark video taken inside our studio apartment. The camera panned over my shattered window, the glass glittering on the floor, and the overturned wooden chair. The caption read, "She went crazy. I just came over to check on her because she wasn't answering her phone, and she smashed the window and jumped out. I think my girlfriend's roommate is having a mental breakdown. She's been acting jealous and weird for weeks. What do I do?" In the comments, the users were already reacting. "Holy crap, is she okay? Bro, stay away from her. Girls like that are fatal. Attraction status. Call her parents or the cops. She's dangerous." And then, there was @alpha_mindset. "She's playing the victim to get attention. Don't let her spin the narrative. Call her roommate right now and tell her what happened before the crazy chick lies to her." Gary had replied to him with a thumbs-up emoji. Already on it. "Daisy is on the phone right now." I felt a cold sweat break out over my collarbone. He was already spinning the
story.
He was turning me into the villain to protect himself, and more importantly, to keep Daisy under his thumb. "Chloe." I looked up. Sarah was running through the library glass doors, followed closely by Mark. Mark looked imposing in a heavy gray hoodie, his face set in a grim
Scowl.
Sarah slid onto the couch next to me, immediately grabbing my arm to inspect the
cut.
"Oh my God, Chloe. You're bleeding." Mark grabbed some napkins from the cafe counter. "I'm fine. It's just a scratch," I muttered, though the sting was starting to set in. "What happened?" Mark asked, handing me a stack of brown napkins. He sat on the low table opposite us, his eyes scanning the lobby as if checking for threats. I explained everything. I showed them the TikTok account @Romeo_Dream, the creepy comments by @alpha_mindset, the spiked coffee can I had left behind on the desk, and the way Gary had hammered on the door. As I spoke, Sarah's face went from worried to absolutely furious. Mark's jaw clenched so hard I thought his teeth would crack. "That absolute piece of garbage," Sarah hissed. "He tried to drug you?
And now
He's posting online that you're crazy. We need to go to the police," Mark said firmly. "Right now. We go to the campus, precinct, or the city PD." "Wait," I said, holding up a hand. "The coffee can. It's still in the room."
If
"We go to the police right now, Gary is still in the building. He has a key to our place because Daisy probably gave him one, or he can just walk in through the broken window. What if he goes in and throws the can away? What if he cleans up the evidence?" Mark frowned, realizing the logical loophole. "He's right across the hall.
If he
realizes he's in trouble, he'll scrub that place clean." "Then we go back," Sarah said, her eyes flashing. "We go back right now. We get your things and we get that coffee can. Mark is with us. If that creeps so much as looks at us, Mark will dent his skull." "I don't mind doing it," Mark agreed, his voice deadpan. "But we have to be smart," I said, the panic slowly hardening into a cold, calculating resolve. "If we just go in there screaming, he'll play the victim. He's already set the stage on TikTok. We need to catch him in the act of being the monster he is." The air in the alleyway was still humid when we arrived 30 minutes later. Mark parked his battered SUV at the mouth of the alley. We didn't go up the fire escape. Instead, we entered through the main lobby of the building. The lobby was silent, smelling of stale cigarette smoke and cheap carpet cleaner. We took the stairs slowly. Mark walked in front, his broad shoulders blocking most of the corridor. Sarah and I followed closely behind. As we reached the second floor, The door to our studio was wide open. I peeked around Mark's arm. Gary was inside. He was standing by my desk holding a black garbage bag. He had already picked up the larger pieces of shattered glass. But what made my blood run cold was what he was doing at that exact second. He was holding the spiked coffee can. He was wiping it down with a damp paper towel, clearly trying to remove any fingerprints. "Looking for something, Gary?" I said, stepping out from behind Mark. Gary jumped, dropping the paper towel. His face went pale when he saw Mark standing in the doorway, but he quickly recovered, his eyes darting around the room before settling on me. He tried to put on his usual smug smile, but it looked forced, his lips twitching at the corners. "Chloe, thank God you're back," he said, his voice rising in pitch. I was so worried. "Look, I came in to clean up. You went totally crazy and broke the window. I didn't want the landlord to find out and evict you guys, so I was just helping." "Helpful," Mark said, his voice like grinding stones. He stepped into the room, his physical presence instantly making the tiny studio feel even smaller.
He
Stood between Gary and the door. Gary swallowed hard, his eyes locked on Mark's shoulders. "Who's this?"
Chloe is.
"This the guy you've been seeing? Is this why you've been acting so weird?" "You don't have to bring muscle to threaten me." "Drop the can, Gary," Sarah said, stepping into the room with her phone raised. "Recording him."
What?
"This." Gary looked down at the coffee can in his hand as if he had just noticed it. "It's just a trash can. I was throwing it away." "You wiped it down," I said, my voice steady. "Because you know what's inside. You know what you put in there." Gary let out a nervous laugh, shaking his head. "What are you talking about? It's just coffee. I bought it at the convenience store." "Are you seriously accusing me of something?" "You're delusional, Chloe. Daisy was right. You've got some serious psychological issues." "Is that why you replied to @alpha_mindset on TikTok saying you spiked it?"
I
asked, pulling out my phone and showing him the screen. "I have screenshots of everything, Gary. I know about @Romeo_dream." For a fraction of a second, absolute panic flashed across Gary's face. His eyes widened and his chest rose and fell rapidly. But then, a dark, ugly sneer replaced his pale expression. "So what?" he spat, his voice dropping into that musty, bitter tone I despised. "It's my account. I can post whatever I want. It's a joke. It's social media. You think the cops are gonna arrest me over a TikTok comment? I didn't do anything to you. You're the one who broke the window. You're the one who ran out like a lunatic." "We'll let the police decide if it's a joke," Mark said. He reached out and snatched the coffee can from Gary's hand before the older man could react. Gary winced, stepping back. "We're taking this. And we're taking her stuff." "You can't do that. That's theft," Gary yelled, but he didn't dare step closer to Mark. "Try stopping us," Sarah said, keeping the camera pointed directly at his face. "Keep talking, Gary. The internet is going to love this." Gary glared at us, his nostrils flaring. He looked like he wanted to spit.
Fine.
"Take the garbage.
See if I care."
But don't think you've won, Chloe. Daisy knows the truth. She knows what kind of snake you are." He shoved past Mark, who didn't move an inch, forcing Gary to awkwardly squeeze by and stormed out of the room, slamming his own door across the hall so hard. The plaster dust fell from our ceiling. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked, turning off the recording. "I am now," I whispered, though my heart was still pounding. "Let's pack. I want to get out of here before he tries anything else." We worked quickly. In less than 20 minutes, my life was packed into 3 duffel bags and a couple of cardboard boxes. I didn't care about the furniture or the cheap decorations. I just wanted my books, my clothes, and my computer. As we walked down the corridor for the last time, I looked at the door to Gary's apartment. It was silent, but I knew he was in there, watching us through the peephole, stewing in his own bitter grease. I spent the next 3 days in the guest bed of Sarah's suite. It was a safe, quiet space, but my phone was a war zone. On Monday morning, Daisy launched her attack.
She didn't call me. She didn't text me.
Instead, she posted a 3-minute video on TikTok. She was sitting in what looked like a cheap motel room in Oregon, her eyes red and puffy, holding a tissue. "I'm so hurt right now," she sobbed into the camera. "My grandfather is literally on his deathbed, and instead of being able to grieve in peace, I have to deal with my best friend, or someone I thought was my best friend, trying to ruin my life." She took a shaky breath, looking directly into the lens. "While I was away, my roommate, Chloe, Tried to sleep with my boyfriend, Gary. He rejected her because he loves me, and when he wouldn't give her the time of day, she completely lost her mind. She started screaming, smashed our apartment window, and ran out. Now she's threatening him with some fake stories.
Chloe, how could you do this to me?
I shared my home with you. I helped you. You're a monster. The video was a masterclass in manipulation. Within 6 hours, it had over 50,000 views. The comments were a nightmare. What a backstabbing bitch. Chloe is cancelled. Someone find her socials. Imagine trying to steal a construction worker from your grieving friend. Pathetic. She looks like a snake. My phone was flooded with notifications. People from our SAT prep center were sharing the video in our group chats. Girls I had sat next to in lecture just last week were sending me hateful messages. Is this true, Chloe? Honestly, I always thought you were weirdly obsessed with Daisy's life. Stay away from us at the center. I sat on the edge of the guest bed, staring at the screen, my hands cold. Don't look at it, Sarah said, walking into the room and gently sliding the
Phone out of my hands.
They don't know the truth. They're just sheep. It's everywhere, Sarah, I whispered. I can't even go back to the prep center. How am I supposed to study for the SAT retakes when everyone is looking at me like I'm some kind of predator? We have the evidence, Sarah said firmly. We have the coffee can, we have the recording of Gary in a room, and we have his TikTok posts.
We just need to
play this smart. If we just dump it all online, people might think we're just trying to defend ourselves with fake proof. We need to make sure the blow is fatal. What do you mean? Mark has a friend, Toby. He's a chemistry major at the university. He works in one of the labs, Sarah explained, her eyes glinting with a sharp, dangerous
light.
Mark took the coffee can to him yesterday. Toby ran a rapid drug screen on the residue inside. I sat up straight. And? Flunitrazepam, Sarah said, her voice dropping into a whisper. Rohypnol, roofies, Chloe, and a massive dose of over-the-counter sleep aids. If you had drunk that entire can, you would have been out for 12 hours. It's a federal offense. Attempted spiked assault. A cold shudder ran through my body. The reality of how close I had come to absolute ruin hit me all over again. Toby wrote up a formal lab report with his signature and the lab seal, Sarah
continued.
We also went to the police precinct this morning because we have the physical evidence, the lab report, and the TikTok screenshots where Gary literally admitted to spiking your drink. They're opening an official investigation. A detective named Miller is on the case. Then why hasn't Gary been arrested yet? I asked, my voice tight. Because Detective Miller needs to verify the TikTok account ownership and they're waiting on a warrant to search Gary's room. It takes time. But in the meantime, Gary and Daisy are continuing to destroy your reputation online. I don't want to wait, I said, a sudden spark of anger replacing the fear in my chest. If they want to use social media to ruin me, we'll use social media to expose them. But we need to find out who at alpha_mindset is. Why? Sarah asked, frowning. He's just some random internet troll, isn't he? No, I said, shaking my head. Look at his comments. He knew I was alone. He knew the layout of our apartment. He told Gary to break into her room tonight, while it's dark. How did he know I was alone in that room unless he was watching us? Sarah's eyes widened. You think he's local? I think he's someone we know, I said. And I think he's closer than we think. To find at alpha_mindset, we needed bait. Sarah and I created a fake TikTok account under the name at rose_wild_99. We used a generic aesthetic photo of a girl's silhouette as the profile picture. We went to at Romeo_Dream's latest video, the one where he was showing off my broken window, and left a comment from our fake account. Honestly, Gary, you deserve better than both of them. That roommate sounds crazy, but your girlfriend doesn't seem to appreciate you either. Let me know if you want to grab a drink sometime. I'm local. Within 3 minutes, at alpha_mindset replied to our comment. Back off, sweetheart. Gary is working on a bigger project. Go find your own alpha. I immediately clicked on at alpha_mindset's profile. It was mostly empty, filled with reposts of motivational videos about cryptocurrency, cold showers, and dominating women. But then I noticed his liked videos. Most of them were private, but his public likes included several videos posted by a local gym, the exact gym located right next to our SAT prep center. Look at this, I told Sarah, pointing at the screen. He likes videos from Iron Temple Gym. That's the one on 4th Street. The prep center students get a Discount there. Okay, but that could be anyone, Sarah said. We need to get his IP address or his phone number, I said. There's a way to.
Do that.
We can send him a tracking link through a direct message. We used a standard URL shortener that logs IP addresses and device information. When clicked, I had at rose_wild_99 send a direct message to @alpha_mindset. I'm not trying to steal Gary. I just think you're really smart. I saw your comments on his posts. You really understand how women think. I wrote a blog post about guys like you. Tell me what you think. We attached the tracking link. For 10 minutes, nothing happened. My heart was in my throat. If he was smart, he wouldn't click it. Then my laptop screen chimed. Link clicked. I immediately pulled up the tracking dashboard. The IP address was local. I ran a reverse lookup. The service provider was the university campus Wi-Fi network. The device was an iPhone 14 Pro. He's on campus, Sarah whispered, leaning over my shoulder. Or at least he's using the campus guest network. Wait, I said, looking at the exact timestamp. He clicked it at 2:14 p.m.
Right.
Now, there's a study session happening at the SAT Prep Center's satellite campus. In the university library basement. Who do we know who has an iPhone 14 Pro, goes to the prep center, and is always on his phone? A face immediately flashed in my mind.
Leo.
Leo was a quiet, unassuming guy who always sat in the back row of our SAT prep
Class.
He was soft-spoken, wore oversized hoodies, and never looked anyone in
The eye.
He was the kind of guy teachers called polite and focused. But I remembered something. During our breaks, I had seen Leo staring at Daisy and me.
At the time, I thought he was just shy.
But once, when I dropped my pen and bent down to pick it up, I saw him quickly lock his phone screen. His lock screen was a black and white quote about Sigma males. It's Leo, I whispered, the realization hitting me like a physical blow.
The
quiet guy from class. He's been sitting behind us, watching us, pretending to be a nerd while typing out instructions on how to assault me. Are you sure? Sarah asked, her voice tight with disgust.
We can prove it, I said.
Mark, do you still have your university student directory access? Mark, who had been sitting in the corner reading a book, looked up.
Yeah.
I can. Search student registration for local IP devices if they've registered on the campus network for classes. It took Mark less than 10 minutes to cross-reference the registered MAC address of the device that clicked our link with the university's database of prep center students who used the library Wi-Fi. The match was perfect. Device owner, Leo Chen. That sick little freak, Sarah spat, her knuckles turning white.
He's been
playing the nice guy in class while actively coaching Gary on how to lock you down through assault. He's the one who gave Gary the idea, I said, my anger boiling over. Gary is stupid. He's a narcissist, but he's not clever. Leo was the brain. He was using Gary as an avatar to act out his sick fantasies because he was too cowardly to do it himself. What do we do now? Sarah asked. We go to the cops with this? Yes, I said. But we also need to let Daisy know. If she has any sanity left, she needs to see what kind of people she's protecting. She won't believe you, Sarah warned. She's too far gone. She thinks you're the enemy. Then we'll have to show her in a way she can't ignore, I said. A way the whole world can see. On Thursday, Daisy returned from Oregon. She didn't return to the studio apartment. According to her Snapchat, she was staying at a motel near the highway, paid for by Gary. She posted a new TikTok, back in town, heading to the prep center today to talk to the administration. People like Chloe shouldn't be allowed to study with decent students. I'm going to make sure she's expelled from the program. She's trying to ruin your future, Sarah said, showing me the post. Let her try, I said, adjusting the collar of my shirt. Are we ready? Mark and his friends are already at the prep center, Sarah said.
There, sitting in the lobby.
Detective Miller is also on standby. He has the warrant for Gary's phone now. We drove to the prep center in silence. My hands were steady.
The fear that had
paralyzed me on Saturday night was completely gone, replaced by a cold, sharp
focus.
When we walked into the lobby of the prep center, the atmosphere instantly shifted. The receptionist, a middle-aged woman named Mrs. Gable, looked up and gasped. The students sitting on the couches whispered to each other, pointing at me. Chloe, Mrs. Gable said, her voice strained. The director wants to see you in his office. Daisy and her boyfriend are already in there. Thank you, Mrs. Gable, I said politely. I'm on my way. Sarah and I walked down the narrow corridor toward the director's office. Before we reached the door, I saw Leo sitting on a bench in the hallway reading a prep book. When he saw me, he quickly looked down, his shoulders tensing. I stopped in front of him. "Nice day for a walk, Leo," I said. He didn't look up.
Yeah.
"I guess. How's the alpha mindset working out for you?" I asked, my voice calm and
Clear.
Leo froze. His fingers clenched the edges of his textbook so hard the paper
Crumpled.
He slowly looked up, his face pale, sweat bead forming at his temple. I don't know what you're talking about." "We know, Leo," Sarah said, holding up her phone, which displayed the tracking logs, his IP address, and his MAC registration. "We know you're at Alpha_Mindset. We know you've been coaching Gary to assault Chloe. And the police are on their way here right now with a warrant for conspiracy to commit felony assault." Leo's eyes went wide with pure terror. He stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. It was just a joke. It's just internet roleplay. I didn't actually do anything." "Tell that to the detective," I said, turning away from him. We pushed open the door to the director's office. The office was small, smelling of carpet dust and cheap air freshener. The director, a stern man named Mr. Vance, was sitting behind his mahogany desk. Daisy was sitting in one of the guest chairs, her face red, holding Gary's hand. Gary was sitting next to her, wearing a clean shirt, trying to look respectable. When the door opened, Daisy jumped up. "Mr. Vance, that's her. That's the girl who tried to ruin my relationship." Mr. Vance sighed, rubbing his temples. "Chloe, please sit down. We have a very serious situation here. Daisy has filed a formal complaint accusing you of harassment, property damage, and inappropriate behavior toward her partner." I didn't sit. I stood tall, Sarah right beside me. "Mr. Vance," I said, my voice carrying throughout the small room. "I'm not here to argue with Daisy. I'm here to present the facts." "Facts?" Gary sneered, leaning back in his chair. "The facts are you're crazy, jealous little brat who couldn't handle the fact that I didn't want you. You smashed the window because you had a temper tantrum." "Gary," I said, looking at him with pity, "did you really think you were clever?" I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. I had set up a live stream on my own TikTok account, which had recently gained thousands of followers due to the drama. "Right now," I said, pointing the camera at Gary and Daisy, "there are over 10,000 people watching this stream. And they're about to see the real Gary." "Turn that off," Mr. Vance yelled, standing up. "This is private administrative business." "No, Mr. Vance," I said. "This is a criminal matter." I laid a folder on his desk. Inside this folder is a certified laboratory report from the university's chemistry department. It proves that the coffee Gary gave me on Saturday night was heavily spiked with rohypnol, a class 4 controlled substance. There is also a printout of Gary's TikTok account at Romeo_Dream, where he admits to spiking the drink with the help of a student named Leo Chen, who goes by at Alpha_Mindset. Daisy laughed, a shrill, hysterical sound. "That's fake. You made that up.
Gary
would never do that. He loves me." "Daisy," I said, my voice softening just a fraction. "Look at him. Look at his face right now." Daisy turned to look at Gary. Gary was no longer looking smug. He was staring at the folder on the desk, his face a sickly shade of gray. His lips were trembling. "Gary," Daisy whispered, her voice suddenly small. "Gary, tell her she's lying. Tell her it's a fake report." Gary didn't answer. He was looking at the window behind Mr. Vance's desk, as if calculating his chances of escape. "He can't tell you that, Daisy," Sarah said, "because the police are outside." Right on cue, the door to the office opened. Detective Miller, a tall, imposing man in a trench coat, stepped into the room, followed by 2 uniformed officers. "Gary Vance?" Detective Miller asked, looking at Gary. "No, that's the director," Gary stammered, pointing at Mr. Vance. "I'm Gary Simmons." "Gary Simmons," Detective Miller said, pulling out a pair of handcuffs. "You are under arrest for attempted administration of a controlled substance with intent to commit assault and conspiracy to commit a felony. You have the right to remain silent." As the officer stepped forward and pulled Gary out of his chair, Gary completely lost his composure. "It wasn't my idea," he screamed, his voice cracking into a high-pitched shriek. "It was Leo. Leo told me to do it.
He said she wanted it.
He said girls like her need to be broken in. I just wanted to make her like me. Daisy, help me.
Tell
I'm a good guy." Daisy sat frozen in her chair, her jaw slack, staring at the man she had defended, the man she had ruined her friendship for. She watched as the metal cuffs clicked around his wrists. You spiked her drink? Daisy whispered, her eyes wide with a sudden, horrifying realization. You tried to her? She's a bitch, Daisy. Gary yelled as the officers began dragging him out of the office. She was trying to come between us. I did it for us. Get him out of here, Detective Miller said disgustedly. In the hallway, there was a loud commotion as the second officer cornered Leo, who was trying to slip out of the exit. Leo Chen, the officer's voice echoed through the corridor. You're coming with us. The office was dead silent. Mr. Vance sat back down in his chair, his face pale. He looked at the folder on his desk, then at me. Chloe, he said quietly. I apologize. The administration will take immediate steps to ensure your safety and academic record are fully protected. Leo Chen will be permanently expelled from the program, effective immediately. Thank you, Mr. Vance, I said. I looked down at Daisy. She was still sitting in her chair, staring at the floor, tears silently streaming down her face. She looked small, defeated, and incredibly foolish. Chloe, she whispered, not looking up.
I'm so sorry.
I didn't know.
I swear I didn't know.
I looked at her for a long moment. I thought about the tiny studio, the shared laughs before Gary arrived, the way she had let him sneak into our room while I slept, and the vitriol she had spewed about me online. I know you didn't know, Daisy, I said, my voice cold and flat. But you chose to believe a creep over your best friend because your ego couldn't handle the
truth.
You ruined your own reputation, and you almost let him ruin my life. Can we talk? She begged, reaching out a trembling hand. Can we fix this? I stepped back, out of her reach. No, Daisy, I said. We can't. I'm moving my things out of the studio.
Permanently today.
You can keep the deposit. I don't care about the money
anymore.
I just want you out of my life. I turned and walked out of the office, Sarah by my side. As we walked through the lobby, the other students stepped aside, clearing a path for us. No one whispered. No one pointed. They looked at me with a mixture of awe and deep respect. On the live stream, the comments were a blur of support. Holy crap, she really brought the receipts. Chloe is a queen. The roommate got exactly what she deserved. Justice served. 3 months later, the autumn air was crisp and clean. I was sitting in a bustling campus cafe, a hot latte in my hand, staring at my laptop screen. The SAT retake results had been released that morning. I took a deep breath and clicked on the portal. Score: 1540. I let out a long, slow sigh of relief. A soft smile spread across my face. It wasn't just a good score. It was a ticket to any university I wanted. Well, Sarah asked, sliding into the seat opposite me, holding 2 plates of
pastries.
Don't keep me in suspense. I turned the laptop screen toward her. Sarah gasped, her face lighting up. 1,540. Chloe, that's amazing. You're going to get into the state honors program for sure. I think so, I said, the weight of the last few months finally lifting from my shoulders. Have you heard anything about you-know-who? Sarah asked gently. The detective called me yesterday, I said, taking a sip of my coffee.
Gary
took a plea deal. Attempted assault and drug possession. He's looking at 3 to 5 years. Leo got 2 years of probation and had his computer equipment confiscated, plus a permanent mark on his record. He'll never get into a decent college. And Daisy? She dropped out of the prep center, I said. Her parents found out about everything. They made her move back to rural Oregon to work on their family farm. She tried to message me on Instagram last week, but I blocked her without reading it. Sarah smiled, leaning back. Good. You don't need that kind of dead weight in your life. I looked out the window of the cafe, watching the colorful autumn leaves drift down onto the sidewalk. The studio apartment, the creepy older man, the toxic rumors, and the fear it was all behind me now. I had faced the absolute worst of human nature, and I had come out stronger, smarter, and completely victorious. To new beginnings, I said, raising my cup. To new beginnings, Sarah echoed, clinking her cup against mine.